Hi guys, John here, Common Sense Outdoors. So I was contacted recently by someone from the friendly Swede, and they asked if I would be interested in testing and reviewing any of their products. I agreed to test and review their magnesium fire starters, which I have here. They sent me. We're going to go into full detail and show how it's used, but before we do that, I want to talk about a few things to make sure everybody understands the difference in the characteristics or principles of the difference between a ferrocerium rod and the magnesium fire starter. First of all, ferrocerium rod is called many different things, from fire steel, blast match, mish metal. This is the modern version of a flint rod. This is the modern day man-made version of a flint rod. It contains 6 different metals in the right combination to create this. This also can be used in the similar fashion to how you use a magnesium block, by shaving off some small materials and then using your spark, and it will catch those small materials in a similar way. The big difference is a ferrocerium rod only contains 4% magnesium. One of the reasons I want to explain that is because on a magnesium block, the rod that you get your sparks from is not a ferrocerium rod, it's a flint rod. So the ferro rod, the sparks coming off this are about 3,000 degrees. The sparks coming off of a flint rod are in the neighborhood of 1,300 degrees. So that's one major difference, but it doesn't affect the usability of a magnesium block, because magnesium flash point is about 400 degrees less than the sparks coming off of the flint rod. But I see a lot of people confuse the flint rod with a ferro rod. It's not a ferro rod on the magnesium block. Before we break into it and start checking it out more, let's talk about a couple advantages and disadvantages of magnesium fire starters. And I'm not going to tell you you should have a ferrocerium rod or you should have a magnesium fire starter. They both work. Some might work better in a different situation than another. It's up to each person to see which one works for them, which one they like, which one they have room to carry or space to carry or want to carry. A couple of things that you should be aware of with magnesium is when it burns, it has a very bright white light burn to it. That white light, that bright white light, it contains ultraviolet light that can actually damage your retinas if you stare at it. It's kind of like welding, not watching the arc of a welder. Another thing is when it burns, it leaves behind a black ash or carbon, and when it first burns, it'll actually put that carbon into the air. You don't want to actually breathe that. Now if you're outdoors doing this, which you should be, it's not really an issue. I mean, you don't want to be inside a enclosed shelter or something and actually just breathing that in. With those couple of things that you should know about magnesium, what is the benefits? The huge benefit to a magnesium fire starter is that magnesium, once you've got it lit, it will burn at temperatures up to 5,610 degrees. That's a huge difference in those 3,000 degree sparks coming off of a ferro rod. And the next thing is you cannot put a magnesium fire out with water. Because of the heat and the intensity of magnesium burning, it can actually, what's the word? can actually reduce water into hydrogen gas. So water can actually, or moisture can actually intensify the burn of magnesium. So that's the huge advantage of a magnesium fire starter, is especially when you're in a situation where you have marginal or damp tinder, that you're not going to get the light from just a ferrocerium rod. One other thing, actually we'll talk about that once we've got these open and we start demonstrating the use. The Friendly Swede has some very nice packaging here. Perfectly clear directions on the back of the packaging. Slide it open. Like I think I already said, it comes in a 3-pack. They also have a card in here that explains the fact that they have a coating on theirs, which nobody else that I know of does. And they say it's to protect from corrosion, which I don't think is necessary with magnesium. There's only a few ways and specific things that have to happen to corrode magnesium. It might oxidize a little bit, but as far as corrosion, I don't think weather is going to corrode magnesium. The next thing is it comes with your striker and chain. Here's the huge advantage that they've done with theirs. Childproof. Yeah. The huge advantage with theirs over all the other magnesium blocks that I've had or seen is the length of this chain. It's actually 3 separate sections, and there's 3 pieces this long in there. So you get the 3 blocks, just 3 striker plates with a saw on one side, and the 3 chains. So the huge advantage to this is you don't have to undo it to be able to use this thing. I actually have a Harbor Freight version of a magnesium block. You see the difference in the chain length. Everything else is going to be very similar. However, the purity of magnesium in this block will greatly depend on how well it performs. So, I don't know how well you can see that. We'll try to get a closer look here in a minute. I'm going to change the camera and get you down close to put this thing into action. They also say the saw teeth on this striker can be used to notch a stick for a deadfall or whatnot. So we'll test and see how well that cuts into wood. It's not as aggressive as the saw teeth on, say, a hacksaw blade or something. They seem somewhat dull, but we'll see how it works. Alright guys, stick with me. We'll change the camera angle and we'll give this thing a try. Okay guys, so here's a closer look at the Friendly Swede's magnesium fire starter. My camera does not do great up close. You can see the flint rod glued into the side of the block there. So just real quick, and I found a nice leaf that we're gonna scrape our shavings onto, or our powder onto, I should say. Let me grab this little stick right here. First thing we want to do is see how this saw does for making a notch. Well, it's not too bad. Kind of slow, but it would do it if it had to. Okay, so there's another function that you can get out of this thing. Before we demonstrate the use of the magnesium block, I've picked the perfect time to put this magnesium fire starter to the test, and the fact that it just rained here yesterday, and like I said, the huge advantage of a magnesium fire starter is the temperature it burns at. So marginal tinder can become possible. It'll kind of flash dry it because of the heat. So I've just taken some moss off a branch just right behind me here. I broke up a bunch of the branch into little pieces. The branch was off the ground and in the tree, which makes a difference. Now, you guys have, if you've watched enough of my videos, you've seen in the spring or summer, this moss off the tree branches will ignite with just the ferro rod if it's dry. Like I said, it just rained here yesterday, and we are damp, marginal at best. I'm going to use my pocket knife because it throws better sparks than the scraper that came with this thing. And we'll just see and make sure on how damp it is. There's pretty good sparks on it right there, 2 times. Oh, just barely got it lit a little bit. Okay, so now we know the situation with our marginal moss as a tinder. You know, I could have brought out a nice paper plate to do this on, or a piece of aluminum foil, and I could have brought out some jute twine, but I really wanted to give it a true test with marginal tinder, damp tinder, because that is the advantage of a magnesium fire starter. Okay, the next thing I'm going to tell you, and no offense against anybody else that said it, this magnesium block, I can throw sparks on it all day long and it's not going to ignite. It's very similar to this piece of wood. I'm not going to ignite this piece of wood with just sparks unless I process it down properly. The finer I process this wood down, the easier I can ignite it and it will burn. Magnesium is the same way. The finer it's processed down, the easier it will ignite and burn. I say that because a lot of guys talk about shavings of magnesium or getting good slivers of magnesium. You want powder of magnesium. And I've even seen people complain that this saw teeth doesn't get good shavings off of this magnesium. It's not intended to give you shavings, it's intended to give you powder, very fine particles. And the correct way to do this is to use the saw teeth side of your striker and just start scraping. You can saw back and forth, you can scrape it up and down, saw back and forth, and just start getting little tiny powder pieces of magnesium to come on. It doesn't take a long time to do. Some people have it in their head that it takes a long time to do this. See, a lot of people get off to the corner to scrape to try to get bigger pieces. It is easier to scrape off the corner, but again, you're going to start getting bigger pieces. The bigger your pieces are, the more it may affect whether it'll take the spark. I'm losing a lot of little flakes that are missing my leaf here. Real easy to use a paper plate and catch every one of them, but I wanted this to be a realistic test. So we've got a pretty good amount and just noticed a hole in my leaf. See if I can get them around that hole. You want about a penny size, 3/4 inch circle, which we have. The next thing you want to do is have your tender ready on the side. Pick up your block again. And I'll tell you right now, this long chain is a big improvement over any other magnesium block that I've ever used. Now you flip it over, use the flat edge of your striker. There's going to be a little bit of a coating on the flint rod, so give that a few strikes to where it's going to start throwing spark. Try to make sure I was in view there. Now I just want to throw my sparks right onto this little bit of magnesium powder. There it goes. I don't know how well you can see the black ash coming, or black carbon coming out of that. And there's my marginal tinder burning. I don't want to rush it. Just let it go, let it dry itself out as it goes. Then as it's going, I'll graduate to a stick. Slowly start adding. You see my leaf is burning. That leaf was very wet. Just let it build up. It's still going. Alright guys, hope that helps explain a few things about magnesium fire starters. Change the camera angle here. Let me show you actually one more thing. One more thing you need to think about with the magnesium fire starter is size. So if we're talking about a small compact wilderness survival kit on your person, you really have to decide if this is an option for you, or if you would rather have a ferrocerium rod and a piece of hacksaw blade. So space is always a concern of mine, so that's another thing to think about when deciding which to go with. Alright, get back to you here in a second, guys. Alright guys, well I hope some of that maybe helped or answered some questions that some of you might have had about magnesium fire starters, advantages and disadvantages. They work great if you use them correctly. Also, like I said previously, the purity of the magnesium block in the brand that you get will play a huge role in its performance. The other thing is, like I showed, is the processing. If you get big old curls or shavings off of that magnesium block and throw sparks on it and it doesn't ignite, you say, oh, that's a piece of junk, and throw it at the bottom of a drawer somewhere. Well, if you would have used it how it's intended to be used and used powder, got that powder to come off the edge of that magnesium block, it will ignite a lot easier. So just my thoughts on that. I want to say thank you to the Friendly Swede for allowing me to test your product. Very nice product. This comes in the 3-pack, like I said. I'll put a link in my description box below that should take you directly to their website. 3-pack, very affordable. I believe it was $12.99 for the 3-pack with free shipping. So $4, is that $4? $4 and some change each. Throw one in a pack, throw one in a truck, throw one in the ATV. Can't hurt nothing. So, works very well in my opinion. I love the extra long chain. Everything works as it should. great piece of kit. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Thank you for your views, your likes, your comments, your support, your subscriptions. And we'll see you as soon as I can get to another video for you.